This is season 2, episode 38 of SportSense. Tonight, we're doing an update on NHL and NBA playoffs, and we're going to especially talk about what it means to rebuild a team. So, Dad, let's get into it.
It's time to get some sports sense. You're gonna get some sports sense. You better get ready for sports sense. Sports sense.
Welcome back to SportSense, everyone. This is the show where we break down sports news for sports noobs. I'm Cooper Epps, here to learn about sports and sports culture from my dad, James Epps. Hey, Dad. Yep. How's it going?
Good. We had our first loss tonight for the young boys, but it's a good time. It's all right. We needed a loss. We needed a loss before end of the season and playoffs. It's the other really good team, but anyway, I won't talk about it too much. It was painful only because we made so many mistakes. Things we work on constantly. So they had quite the after game meeting there. We had the players. So.
How many games is that little league season?
So I think league's about 10 or 11.
Okay.
So
yeah, so
we're
they're halfway
7-1. But anyway, the other team is 7-1, the one we lost to. So I'd rather lose to the really other best team. Anyway, but hey, we made a big comeback at the end, scared the pants off the other team at the end, just came up a little short.
Yeah.
So that part was fun. All right, before we start.
Oh, yeah.
This is painful for me. Painful.
I heard about this.
But what it is, I have a mistake to confess. Nothing personal. Yeah. This is all about
set the record straight for the people so you guys don't go around.
No. It's all news. Just about the podcast, some information I shared. I have to say it's two things. One, these are the kind of mistakes I do make when I go, which is not unusual, that I go too fast, too much, and don't have time to really vet certain things. And even when this was brought to my attention, back in my mind, I go, oh yeah, I kind of remember this, but I am getting, up there in age a little bit. And I think when I go too fast, there's so much going in his brain that it's now
swelling
seeping,
with knowledge.
It's seeping out. That's the problem. I'm losing. But anyway, one of your brothers, which I'm impressed that he listens. So that's really good. Made me aware that I made and I'll use his word. I won't name the brother, but egregious error. I made an egregious mistake, which I love that word. Actually, I'm a vocabulary guy, so that's great.
Oh, yeah.
So last week I'm talking about all the cool stories about the draft. So I'll make this quick. I retold a story, which what got me is, again, I said two things cost me. One, I go too fast, right? Don't pay close enough attention and vet it out. And number two, is technology throws me off a little bit when I see clips, right? Like a presentation I was going through all the highlights and some of the big most interesting things that happened in the draft. And this video clip was sandwiched right in between all the 2026 ones, right?
Yep.
I've seen like 6 or 7 of them. And I went back and looked, they're all 2026, except for one that slipped in there. But see, I should have known it because I watched there's an episode right now on ESPN, and they focus on 4 or 5 teams. It's like a 30 for 30 on the draft, the 2026 draft.
Yeah.
So I had seen this team and what they were all wearing and how they approached and their setup of their room. I've already seen it for 2026, and I should have known.
Well, you're dancing all around it. What was the story that
Dallas Cowboys, Deuce? Remember, I talked about Deuce, the son.
Yeah, the guy named Deuce.
Yeah, so his son, the father worked for the Dallas Cowboys. On draft night, they drafted his son. He got the call and said, hey, how would you like to come to work with me on Monday? Problem
Super
is
cute.
Sweet, tears. That come to work on Monday was 3 years ago, draft of 2023. So there's my mistake. I'm sorry. Still a touching story. And I told this one brother of yours that most of our listeners probably didn't catch that.
Right.
So it's still a great story. But so my bad. I'll try not to make these mistakes very often. But and I don't ask for any understanding or forgiveness.
You've got a pretty good percentage, so we allow you some slack on this.
All right. So that was that. So let's move on.
First,
while we're on the NFL, remember what have I always told you about how sharp the NFL business approach is?
it's the best in the biz, you said.
Right. So what
best
do
in
they always
sports.
are able to do somehow, no matter what other sports are going on? What do they do?
Grab the attention all year
Somehow, right?
long. Yeah.
So what do you know what happened today? They snuck in. All of a sudden, they got a lot of attention on the sports shows.
No.
Today, I know, right? They
I didn't hear
dropped some of their schedule. So the biggest and hottest games coming up in the fall, they dropped that schedule today, and all of a sudden they had the airwaves talking, right? Right in the middle of
waving his arms all around.
Oh, apparently your sister got me taking a lot of pictures tonight. I was doing a lot of this because things weren't going well. So I just laughed at that today, how they snuck that in there.
Yeah.
Because what happened this weekend about the NBA? Do you know about the?
I think so, but don't say it yet.
Okay.
It's one of our
so
stories.
they slid in on that, and then they slid in on the NHL. I just laughed that they slid.
Like they're
this
always
in
competing
there.
for attention. Yeah, they're always doing something.
They get a little something always in there. Anyway, that's it. It was a reminder today how good they are at sliding in there.
Technical thing. I'm on the wrong mic, so I got to stop recording really quick and switch that mode. So we'll be right back.
Okay.
Sorry about that, everyone. Back on the regular mic, and yeah, NFL always got something to tantalize us with, if that's the right word. But yeah, let's get back to, you tease us with a little bit of NBA. We do have one mailbag thing, but we'll come back to that when we get to hockey. So yeah, NBA was the one story you were talking about a second ago about the guy named Wemby.
No, but that's good. So I had two things. So I can talk all about Victor Wembanyama, what happened.
Well, Wembanyama. So apparently Wemby, as he's known as, went viral this past weekend for throwing an elbow pretty deliberately into a guy's neck during a basketball game this weekend, a playoff game, and got ejected for that. So
yes.
That is a story I've seen and heard, and it's a pretty brutal clip.
No, let's give it context.
Anyway.
That big guy he hit, he's thick-necked, he's fine.
It didn't look so bad, but I mean, for basketball, it was
full speed,
elbow to the neck.
Yeah, slow speed things look bad too, but full speed, he did it pretty good. But let's talk about that real quick. Let's give it context.
Yeah.
Wembanyama's 7'4".
And he's a star of
most times when he swings, let me tell you why those elbows are coming out.
Okay.
This is where the refs, and by the way, he never complains about the refs. His coach doesn't complain about the refs. But Minnesota Timberwolves have got a bunch of older veterans, some big, thick dudes. And if they try to play Wembanyama just clean and straight up, he's going to eat them alive. And that's why, and he has eaten them alive. And that's 2 games to 2 games. 2-2, right? But they would have won more than likely. Spurs would have won last night if Wembanyama played the whole game. If you watch, there's so many clips out there. Go and watch the clips of the highlights they'll show so by design, Minnesota was going to beat on him, lean on him, grab him, shove him, grab his arm.
Basically.
Yeah, but they don't call him fouls. So if you go back to that clip, and you can see it from the beginning when he first gets the ball, you'll see there's guys raking his arms, grabbing him, pulling from behind. There's 2 or 3 guys absolutely mauling him. So he's he's moving the ball, right? He's trying, and all big men do this when they start acting like that. He's trying to clear them out. More, mostly. Okay. He's so tall, most times when he does it, it goes right above their heads a lot of time. This one guy got up and under him, and he'd already been fouled, and the guy had fouled him. I mean, if you just see it. So this is Wembanyama finally, I think he fell for it, right? He let him get to him just enough because he's usually so cool and calm. And he did come. I mean, he knew he was going to make contact. He didn't know where, I don't think. So it went to his throat. Better than the side of his head, I guess. Yeah. And quite often he's so tall and he's swinging that the guys generally kind of lower and they're ducking. But he called him flush. So the good news, bad news. Bad news, he got ejected from that game. Good news is the NBA, they're not stupid in their home office, right? The headquarters. They did not fine him, nor did they suspend him for another game. Okay. So they're not going to screw up the playoffs completely, right? This series. Yeah. So he'll be back for the next game, and he won't do that again. But I bet there'll be some conversation with the reffing with the NBA executives too, saying review the game, and they do. They review all the game film. They review the game film.
Okay, sorry.
And they review the fouls and all that. So my opinion, watch and see if I'm right, refs will call it a little closer, the guys that are beating up Wembanyama in the next game. And as they do that, Spurs will take off and beat them, and that's my projection. But anyway, so that's what happened, a little context.
And from what you've taught me about basketball, it's fine if you want to beat up on a player, but you've got to pay the price of taking some fouls on, right?
Right. So anyway, it's the old days. It's weird. Similar, but different builds. Old days when Shaquille O'Neal was so powerful and strong, people just hung on him and grabbed him. And if they called a foul every time, the league knew the whole team would foul out, though. The whole team would foul out because he was just so big. It's not right. I'm just saying it's reality. So anyway, that's what happened. He's a great guy. He's not a dirty player. First time ever he's gotten even a flagrant foul, I think, called, much less an ejection. So
right.
I'm glad he did it. I hope it creates enough attention to the refs.
Yeah.
And I'm good with it.
It was just so perfectly on camera, and it looked so intentional. Of course, that had to spread on the internet like wildfire. Okay, so
the other part of the NBA I was going to mention.
Yes.
The ping pong balls.
Okay, I haven't heard about this.
Oh my gosh, you're right there in Utah. This was a big deal for Utah.
This happened in Utah? Oh, the draft.
There you go. The draft order of the lottery picks. It's the lottery ping pong ball bonanza.
Yeah, let's do a quick recap and see what I remember from talking about this last year. So NBA teams, they don't just, it's not like NFL where it's just worst team gets the first pick in the draft, right? It's more like, do they kind of ballpark them and then they do a little... They spin some balls and pick out a number?
The worst teams, now it's changing, so I'm going to stick with what I've known all of my history. The worst teams have the most balls. So if you're the worst team, you got the most ping pong balls. And then it gradually goes down.
It's like having tickets in a raffle.
Yes. So you got, the worst team has the best odds, but quite often they're not the ones that, their ping pong ball doesn't come up.
That's crazy.
It is. So the big news, and the reason and this happened, your brother-in-law Dallin spoke up. I guess the good news and bad news. Good news is the Jazz, based on their ping pong ball allotment and what percentage it should have been, they actually moved up and did well. They ended up second. They're going to be second in the draft.
Wasn't it like the first time in their history they'd ever outdid whatever their chances were?
Improved and went above on there.
So getting a number 2 pick for them is massive.
And the number 1 pick went to the Wizards, the Washington Wizards. The only reason I'm sad, could you not? If DeBonsa's going to go first. He's going to go first. It's pretty clear now.
That's what I was wondering. Yeah.
Pretty clear now. And Jazz, what a perfect fit, right? He would have loved to stay in Utah. Perfect.
Oh my gosh, yeah.
Now, the Jazz might sell their souls and trade. Who knows if the Wizards are willing to trade?
Yeah,
they might. Sadly, the one they're going to take he's incredible talent. He's like a Kobe Bryant lookalike. But the problem is, and they say they found his problem, but he had some games didn't play because he didn't fill up to it that game, and I don't know.
Yeah,
he seemed a little squirrely to me.
Not DeBonsa, but whoever else is like the second pick.
Yeah, it's I know his name, but anyway,
it's okay, but but whoever else is top pick along with
Darren
DeBonsa.
Darren Peterson, Kansas, and then there's Cameron Boozer or a couple other guys. But more than likely, Jazz will take Peterson because you just got to almost. I mean, he's just that when he's playing, he is unbelievable.
Assuming that the Wizards take DeBonsa.
Right. Yeah. Well, and they will, unless they get a trade out.
Yeah.
So anyway, that's all. Ping pong ball. That's what that was all about this week. So the draft has not occurred, obviously, but just the order ping pong ball order for the lottery picks, the top 10 picks, I guess, whatever it is.
So now ownership's going to start figuring out their strategy, getting ready for the selection or the draft, which is
draft.
In a month, right? It's in June, I think is what I Googled.
2 weeks. Yeah, 2 weeks after the finals.
Okay, cool.
All right, man.
All right. Well, yeah, so that's funny. I mean, that's pretty big news. And so for the NFL just to release a schedule of a few games, it's funny that overtook the sports news
It did for a
landscape
while today. It was
compared to that.
funny. But anyway, so that's
all right.
that's people around the Jazz country where you live. That was a big deal.
It is a big deal. And I'm kind of like, so my brother Keaton, he texted our group a month or so ago and he said, guys, I'm a free agent. I want to be an NBA fan. I'm a free agent right now. What team do I root for? He was ready to throw a dart at the board, I think. And anyways, of course, we have some Jazz presence in our chat. Charlotte, our hometown team, have they ever been good, Dad? I don't know.
They had their moments about, I think it's 12 years ago, 10 or 12 years ago.
Okay.
Maybe more than that, actually. Larry Johnson, those guys, probably back in the mid 2000, like 2005, 6, 7. I can't remember. It's been a long time, but they got more attention. I got to tell you this one. Now you asked.
I know.
Charlotte.
Sorry.
So LaMelo Ball, but they did get an incredible rookie, the Duke player. Knipple is his name. He was great. He was right next to the rookie of the year. Cooper Flagg barely beat him out. Okay. So they're building and made the playoff. That one play-in game, they stunk, but they made the play-in game. So they got as close as they've been in forever.
This year? They got close? They got that close? Wow.
To the playoffs. They got in the play-in game and lost. So they didn't get in the first round of the playoffs. But they made huge strides. But
good.
So the funny thing is LaMelo Ball and his wife, I'm not sure if they're married, but they had their first baby. Now, know his brother, he's LaMelo, and then they're all the little whatevers, right? LaMelo,
I don't know.
Anyway, they're all
and who are these guys? They're players.
This is the Ball brothers. 2 of them play in the NBA. There was 3 of them trying to play in the NBA. LaMelo is his name. He named his son LaOne.
No, what?
LA capital ONE.
Kind of like, is the next one going to be La2? Is that the idea?
I got no answer. I'm just sharing with you information I thought you would find interesting.
That is, celebrity baby naming is one of the most fascinating cultural phenomenons in our time. We'll have to come back to that because that's hilarious. I love that.
That was my last
it could
NBA
grow on
thing.
me. LaOne. Yeah. I mean, it's kind of rolling off my tongue. LaOne. Yeah, I mean, it's weird because it hasn't been done probably, but hey, it could grow on me. I'm not going to totally dismiss it yet.
Okay, well, there you go. There's a little gem for you.
So is he a Charlotte player? Is that why you are mentioning
LaMelo?
that?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, he's their star right now. He's their star.
Oh, okay. All right. Cool. All right. Well, let's get into a sport that actually has some justice in the game, some roughness, with a little bit more tolerance for roughness is what I'm trying to say. Let's get into hockey. So there's a couple different angles on this, but let's start with our mailbag question. We had our lovely listener Macy Epps, lovely creature. She messaged me directly in mid-dinner saying, "Who the heck are the Habs?" Now, have you heard this one, Dad? Do you know who the Habs are in the NHL?
Yeah. They're the I mean, I hear it all the time. So I'm trying to Montreal. No,
go on.
It's not the Canadiens.
Yeah, you're right.
Is it the Canadiens?
Yeah, Montreal Canadiens. Yeah. So you were there. You're downing yourself, but you were there.
I had to think through it. I'm a little shook up since last week. I'm not trusting.
Yeah, you got to bounce back. Okay, so let's give a little tiny bit of backstory. Google AI says the Montreal Canadiens are called the Habs, Habs, if you're not sure, if you can't quite hear me, because it refers to the 17th century French settlers of Quebec known as les habitants, or the habitants. So very creative. Anyways, I don't know. So here's one little important piece of context. The Canadians are one of they call them the original 6. So the first 6 founding teams of the NHL. It's apparently a little bit more nuanced than that. I think before that there was only 3 or 4 Canadian teams or something, but they weren't quite the NHL. Anyways, in its fully fleshed out state, these were the original 6. six: Montreal Canadiens, Toronto Maple Leafs, Boston Bruins, Chicago Blackhawks, Detroit Red Wings, and New York Rangers. And so, point being is, Habs, it probably, I mean, that team started in 1909, so there's still these old traditions that are carrying down. I think Habs was just a thing that was a colloquialism back then. It carried into the start of the team, and then I think it's just a very, very traditional part of one of these original six hockey teams. So that's it. It basically refers to, it's kind of like if you were to call like the Utah team like the Pioneers or something as a nickname, like
Right.
it's referring to like these settlers from centuries ago.
I gotta say, I'm
Okay.
impressed I pulled that Montreal Canadiens out of that.
Yeah,
That
I know.
was-
I'm impressed too.
Whew, that was close.
I mean, I was hearing it was close. I was hearing commentators refer to them as the Habs past week or so, and I just I was like too lazy to look it up. But yeah, there you go. So those are the Habs. As I went down that rabbit hole, I found a lot of teams and mascots have a lot of weird nicknames, and a lot of players have a lot of weird nicknames in the NHL. Anyways, so I want to do a whole segment on that before these playoffs are through, and so we'll come back to that. But
right.
Okay, now here's a concept. Okay, this will be kind of part of our sports speak this week. I want to talk about the concept in sports of a rebuild, a team rebuild. So, Dad, I just want you, just off the top of your dome, how would you define or describe a rebuild in sports?
All right. I'm going to take one step back because this is one of the hottest topics, and leagues are trying, especially basketball, especially NBA. We're on that. They're the ones that can do it the easiest. But there's a discussion that's huge and a strategy called tanking. We've talked a little bit about it. So tanking.
I had a friend message me about this. I had no idea what he was talking about.
Tanking kind of comes as part of the rebuild. So a rebuild is this. You have a team and you really are starting to, couple things happen. One, you're struggling and you're not accomplishing what you want to. But a lot of times a rebuild comes from this. You've got an older team with very expensive contracts, players that were really top heavy on cost. So you might have 2 or 3 players that have outrageous contracts that they were great in their day. And even for this team, they might have been great, but you kept re-upping them, if you will. They got their second contract and they got big money, and then you got another. Or you might have made a trade thinking you need one more piece, right? And you bring that player who's historically really good, but it cost a ton of money. So you're heavy, usually with salary and age. They start aging and have injuries, and they start being subpar in their production. But a team can't do much about it because they're tied to those contracts. They're tied to too much money, and their other players are they're bringing in other players that don't cost much, which means maybe you'll get lucky and draft some really good younger players that really blossom, that kind of come in under the radar. So what happens in a rebuild is you say, man, we are going to suck for the next 1 or 2 years, 1 or 2 years, usually at least. And we're dumping all those contracts. We're going to trade the expensive players who have big name recognition for as much as we can get them. And sometimes they get rid of a player in a rebuild, and they actually have to pay some of their salary for the next year or two. So that's why it takes a couple of 3 years sometimes, because you're still, even though you get rid of the player, you get some new drafts and get new cheap young players, you're still paying for salaries quite often. Man, it's like you're sharing.
Yeah. It's like a divorce. You're paying alimonies or whatever.
Right. So if for some reason, like the Lakers are coming up on this a little bit, they're having to fight through a team that wants to get rid of a big player, and to get another team to take his contract, they might say, okay, we'll pay 30% of his salary. You guys, the new team pays 70. And they negotiate it out, and okay, new team pays 70. We pay 30% for the next 2 years of his contract. So in a rebuild, you're not only dumping big contracts, you're dumping them, but sometimes you have repercussions or fallout that lasts for a couple of years. Maybe hopefully not 3 years, but at least 2 years, if not 3 years. And then what you start trying to do is rebuild through the draft. You're going to stink, and this is what we're talking about tanking. You kind of make sure you stink
Okay.
And your hometown team did this to perfection this past year, the Jazz.
Yeah.
They got rid of some of their top players over the last 2-3 years, and they have been in rebuild mode for the last couple of years. And then look, the draft paid off for them. They're going to have the second pick in the lottery. So that's how it works. And you start rebuilding through the draft and trying to find really good young players that have low cost contracts.
Okay.
And then you try to ride that wave of, like right now, San Antonio, Wembenyama's first year was 3 years ago, I believe. And they didn't win one extra game, even though when he came over there for the prior year. But they're drafting and not even trades, drafting. Right now, their best 3 players are age 20, 21, and 22. Wembenyama is the senior in that group of those top 3 players. And then they got a couple other really good players, and they're all like 21 years old, or 22 or 20. So you can see how good. Look where they are now. Look how far they're advancing. They might get to the finals this year. So that's a team that went through a massive rebuild, probably a 3 or 4 year rebuild. So that's what it's about.
Okay, I've got a couple questions off that. So I'm confused because we've talked before about, I think, what you're describing as tanking, where it's like, why not lose on purpose to get a number one? We've talked about this in the NFL in particular, in order to get a number 1 draft pick the next year. So, and we've talked about, these players, they're playing for their jobs, their coaches are coaching for their livelihood, which I get that. But if ownership and coaches and players are all on the same page about it, is that what's going on with the NBA that you're talking about, where you could intentionally tank and nobody loses their job, and everybody's kind of got the same goal in mind?
It could be, but a little bit of the fallacy there is a lot of times they're not on the same page. An owner can owner makes the final decision, but owner can really, we talk about bad owners or not so good owners, and they do stupid things. They get involved and they force the decision down to the general manager, who then has to tell the coach, this is what we're doing. Coach said, no way we can do that. That's going to screw us royal. Well, big man says so, big man writes the check. So they're not always on the same page. The players particularly, they're the ones that really say, I don't care what they say. I got to go play and give it all. Like, I got to put good stuff on film, and I've got to, fight for my job. And they have pride too. They care. They've been playing ball since they're little, and they're used to winning. And so, but the NFL is trickier to me to tank. There's 11 guys on offense, 11 guys on defense, big coaching staff, special teams. I don't know. To me, it's a harder job. I think some do. And the way they can more easily tank is, let's say they get halfway, 2/3 way of the season, and then they're not going to make the playoffs, right? They've already had a bad year. They've had some injuries. Well, man, if they got a really good quarterback who's got a little bit of a bad hammy, they might pull him out for the last 3 or 4 or 5 games. The quarterback. Quarterback drives a lot, right? They're the key position in football. So they might sit the quarterback but to me, it's kind of hard. But they do it some. And all conferences right now are in the middle of fighting. What rules can we put in place to discourage tanking? The problem in what I've seen is sometimes you have the law of unintended consequences. Every time they put some rule in they think is going to change or drive behavior in the way they want, they'll get unintended consequences that can either just like gas on the fire of the tanking, or you know what I mean? It screws it up. They didn't think through that scenario. And then these smart general managers and coaches and other teams go,
everybody's
an
always
opening
looking for a loophole. Yeah, there's always going to be a loophole being exploited.
So the law of unintended consequences plays a lot when they start trying to do too much controlling. Interesting. Interesting.
Yeah. So what you're saying is that there are NBA teams that are successfully tanking their teams on purpose.
They have
somehow
up to this point. Yeah.
So somehow they're able to, even with the players' pride and the coaches and owners' miscommunication.
Well, if basketball is much easier, because if you trade away all your top talent and you start amassing draft capital, and you amass money, you get those old debts paid off, and you're accumulating cash, right?
Yeah.
Then you can really, then you may get ready for the next wave.
Okay.
Yeah.
So then we're talking rebuild, and that's how long. Let's. I know it probably varies based on sport, but how long would you generally estimate a franchise takes to rebuild to a place where they're playing for a championship?
Believe it or not, NBA has the least amount of players, but it takes the longest time, I think.
Okay.
3 to 4 years. NFL football, again, the way they're done, and you're the worst, you got the top draft pick. You're number 1 or 2 draft pick every day. And in football, I think they turn around. They can turn it. You can go worst to first quite often in NFL because of the draft and trades. If you make the right trades and get the right draft. So NFL can flip it quicker, and they expect to flip it quicker. NBA, it's a longer process. Baseball, I don't really see it. Baseball doesn't seem to have to deal with this because the way they have it structured.
Yeah.
They don't seem, it's not the same. So it's mostly the NBA and NFL.
Yeah, now that you bring that up, there's a lot I am realizing I don't know about baseball, because it seems like as we have these broader conversations, a lot of times they don't come in. Sounds like it's pretty unique. So we need to, once we get more baseball focused, I want to ask you more questions about that organization and how it works. But, and I think what you're saying based on 3 to 4 years, that's what it feels like for hockey to me too, watching enough hockey over the years. That being said, I think I feel good about our rebuild conversation. As I was Googling it, I kept seeing the word turnaround too. Do you kind of equate those?
Same thing. Yes. Mm-hmm. Same thing.
Same. All right.
Yeah. It's being the worst and turning it around and becoming competitive and making the playoffs. So that's turning it around, turning the tide, changing the tide, turning it around, changing the culture, all part of working towards. And the rebuild is, again, rebuild just adds more. The turnaround is like the general term. We're going slowly but surely, that massive ship is going to turn in the right direction. But rebuild is the work. I think it's more, you could get into the nitty gritty. Here's what you do in a rebuild. You dump big contracts. You get cheap labor who's not as good, and you lose ball games, and you start drafting higher and better. And
yeah. Interesting. So here's my final question about rebuilds, actually. How long, let's say you rebuild a team to excellence, how long can you sustain that in general?
That's great. And that's why I was using the Spurs as the perfect example right now, because they could easily make a run if they stay healthy in the group they have. They could run for the next 10 years. They could run for
just
the
same
next
players,
10 years.
you think?
Pretty much.
Almost
same core players. Most of them would get a second contract off their rookie deal, and they would still be able to manage the money more than likely. You could probably get 8 to 10 year run out of the NBA. NFL is not so much. NFL is a little tougher. Their contracts are usually 4 to 5 years, but even those, they renegotiate their best players at about the 3-year mark. Anyway, it gets kind of crazy lucrative and a little different.
Yeah. Okay. Well, so it's kind of, I have more that I'm wondering about, but we'll leave it where it lies right now. That was a great conversation. Yeah, thanks for talking about rebuild. So, hey, that being said, let's finish this up with a quick NHL playoff update, because this is interesting talking about rebuilds. Okay, so we've talked about it in recent weeks. As people selected their brackets, as the Vegas odds people, as you like to, ominously refer to them as, a lot of people had the Colorado Avalanche going all the way, winning the Stanley Cup championship. The Hurricanes were second, kind of far back behind. And then, I can't remember who our third one was. It was either Dallas Stars.
I thought
or
it was the
Vegas.
night. Is it? Yeah, Vegas.
Yeah, it might have been Vegas. Yeah. So, anyways, so the big news of this past week is Carolina Hurricanes swept their second opponent, meaning, and we haven't defined swept on here for a while, but that's you got to win 4 out of 7 games to win the series. And if you win the first 4 all in a row, knock them out, that's a sweep if you haven't heard that term. Okay.
And the fans come if you're up 3-0 and you have a chance to sweep and the home team, you're the home team and you have a chance to sweep 4-0. They bring brooms, and they start
nice.
waving the
Sure.
brooms. So it's a sweep, right? Yeah.
That's awesome. Yeah. Well,
easiest prop ever.
Yes. Oh yeah. And that would be so fun to do that. And in fact, the Hurricanes, they've done their sweep away both times so far. And they've had, all I've seen is a couple away Hurricanes fans just miming a sweeping motion. So anyways, yeah, they haven't had the broom treatment that I've seen. But anyways, point being is the Hurricanes tied a record that hasn't been set since, I believe the specific stat goes back to 1987 is when they first started the best of 7. Every series in the Stanley Cup playoffs were best of 7. And so this is the first time since then that a team has gone 8-0 in the playoffs. No losses yet, totally undefeated in the playoffs. So because of that, because the Avalanche have lost once or twice, I can't remember, against Minnesota recently, the odds have shifted where now Carolina has about 10% higher chance statistically than Colorado to win the Stanley Cup. And so that's pretty exciting. I think they have to win 1 or 2 more games to break the record of games won straight overall in the NHL. So anyways, pretty cool. We love to see it. So
yep. Nice.
Yep. And I wanted to mention that in connection with rebuilds because I wanted to speak a little bit more intelligently on the podcast about this. So I've started researching a little bit more about the Hurricanes, what has changed. I've been watching them pretty loyally for almost 10 years. And it was about 8 or 9 years ago that they got their current coach, Rod Brindamore, who's nicknamed Rod the Bod. He's famous for crazy workouts, outworking everybody around him, and he was the captain of the Hurricanes in 2006 when they won the Stanley Cup.
He's your most famous alumni.
Yeah. So
past players.
Exactly. So ownership brought him in, and I learned that actually a lot of people were kind of worried. Like, of course they liked him as a player, but how would he do as a coach? He hadn't really proven himself a lot as a coach yet. And a lot of people said it was just a nostalgia thing, trying to sell tickets. But anyways, Rod immediately got the Hurricanes back in the playoffs, and this is their 8th season in a row, at least getting into the playoffs since then. I think it was 8th or 9th, but
yeah, I think it's the 8th.
Anyways,
it's a fantastic, unbelievable.
So yeah, it's interesting. I'm not sure. That seems like a pretty quick turnaround. I don't know what he did as far as drafting and stuff that first year to quote rebuild. But I know that it's been a really long game since then to actually have a chance of going all the way. They made it to the playoffs, but they've been a lower seed and so forth. Right. So,
well, I think what he did initially to get that burst was a change of culture. I mean, he had he had the touch.
Yeah.
He had the touch. And then with change of culture, a lot of that has to do, and I think all sports, but hockey and maybe football especially, you talking about a Hall of Famer walking into your locker room and saying, "All right, fellas." I mean, he knows.
Yeah.
I mean, hey, how long you play? Like 23 years or something?
I think so. Yeah,
ridiculous long amount of successful playing. So that gives you, now that doesn't make you a great coach, but what it helps you do is change the culture in the very beginning and get the players' attention. And they're going to be more apt to listen in the beginning. And then if you build off that and you earn the additional respect, you got the, they're going to give it to you initially, but then you got to earn it. And then he earned it with his coaching stripes, and he just did it. So it just, anyway, I think it's great. I love it.
And it's still been a slow rebuild that he established a new culture, a new style, but he's been for years moving around the pieces. I've been learning he has a very particular, I've been hearing about Hurricanes play style, but I always thought it was just like, oh, they're extra fast, they shoot a lot. And yes, that is part of it, but it gets more particular that, of course, where they have a special method of defense that their opponents describe as they feel suffocated when they play Carolina and so forth. It's like a certain style, and what it leads to is it's less we talk about it a lot with other championships teams. It's less about having stars that are incredible and having a team that can work together to accomplish the goal. And so the Hurricanes have one of the more even spreads of points across players of goals scored, because they have to work as a team, and so everybody gets goals. And so there's not like Ovechkin's breaking Wayne Gretzky's goal records. It's the team coming together for this particular play style that is very defensive, and then when they have a chance to go on offense, very aggressive and fast. And so it's apparently
hockey is so different too in that. That's why it works so well too. You have line changes, and the thing is that they're known for on their line changes, there's no breath or reprieve for the other team. That next line coming in is going to do the exact same thing the first line did. The third line that comes in is going to do the exact thing the second line did. Right?
Yeah,
they might have an extra
down,
player or two. Yeah, they just, I think it's pretty relentless. I think, again, based on what he built.
Yes. And so the interesting last thing I want to end on is this interesting story, which is the beginning of this season, they did pick up a huge superstar. We might have talked about this. Now that I'm saying it, we might have talked about this last week. But they picked up a guy named Rantanen is his last name. And he played like a couple games. And then they traded him away. And all the fans were so confused. Oh, what? We got this big, strong, amazing superstar. He's going to bring so much power to the team. And they traded him away. And I think I said that last week, but I didn't understand the full context. And
I don't remember you saying much about it, but yeah.
The full context is that Rod Brindamore was like, okay, this is the drill here. This is how we play. This is our strategy. And Rantanen, he's a star. He wanted goals. And so he wasn't having any of it. And he spoke out publicly while still under contract with the Hurricanes against him. Is crazy. There's some drama there. And so anyways, they swiftly traded him away to Dallas, and they got a couple players and I think a draft pick or something. And anyways, now the people they traded for, young guys, young talent, are crushing it with this particular play style, doing great. And overall, yeah, Dallas is looking like they might be out. And anyways, it's kind of cool. So I like seeing a little bit of I don't know. I like the spite, I guess, a little bit, or the pettiness. Not even the pettiness, just the karma of Rantanen not being willing to be a team player. Then he goes and loses in Dallas and watches the team he could have been with.
I love that ownership and general manager. Everybody had to be on the same page to make and had to listen to Brindamore. When he put his foot down, that's what should tell you more than anything. That's the sign. That's the sign that Brindamore has got juice. And he's in complete lockstep with the general manager, and the owner's saying, y'all run the hockey team.
Yeah.
And that is that's a beautiful thing. You got a chance for real success when you have that relationship with all three of those levels: ownership, general manager, and coach.
Yep, exactly. So, and sorry, hopefully it doesn't feel too much like Homer talk here on this episode, but hey, this is the current thing. NHL playoffs are probably the most exciting sporting event going on right now, and the Hurricanes have earned their dominant position, and it's pretty cool to talk about or see them talked about on the national scale. They're kind of like BYU sometimes. They get kind of poo-pooed on by commentators and newscasters and stuff, and so it's cool to see them win.
They know how to take care of that. You got to win the Stanley Cup.
Yep, exactly.
They know. All right, man.
Okay, Dad. Well, thanks for tuning in, everybody, and
love you.
Bye.
Bye, buddy.